I graduated university, finishing my master's in 2018. And shortly after graduating, I knew that Spider-Man was coming out in October. So after having skipped out on the PS3 generation, I went and finally got myself a used PS4. Originally, I had said that I would only buy a PS3 whenever Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, which, yeah, it's really funny now looking back at it. I had recently graduated, and so I still couldn't really afford too much, so I bought a bunch of used copies of games, including Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 Remix Final Mix. Now, I've loved Kingdom Hearts all my life. I have played all of the games when they came out. I followed every single console that had been done. I signed up for a Japanese iTunes account so I could play the mobile game back in the day. And in particular, I played a lot of Kingdom Hearts 2. I didn't really have a normal summer the way most kids did. I didn't go to summer camps. I didn't have midnight AOL chatting sessions. I didn't really get to have the experiences that I had seen on TV or movies. And so I would really live vicariously through the Prelude in Kingdom Hearts 2, where you play as Roxas for a week at the end of his summer vacation. And it was then when I was playing it as an adult that it occurred to me that I'm never going to have a summer vacation ever again. It wouldn't be until I was an adult that I learned that people did not like this. I was shocked to learn that people were upset when it initially came out. I was a kid, a little younger than Roxas is supposed to be, and I played so much of this, and I really loved it. I enjoyed it. I played it over repeatedly because as a kid, it really captured the feeling of like you're running out of time, that you want to go through everything as fast as possible, basically trying to speed run a whole summer's worth of memories into a week. And so that summer in 2018, I made the decision that on the last week of August every year, I would play through the Prelude of Kingdom Hearts 2. And after having played it so many times, and now that I'm a semi-consistent YouTuber, I really wanted to go in and explore what it is that I love so much about it, and what about it as a kid grabbed me to it, and why it still to me holds up now as much as it did when I was 13. Now, even though I sincerely, genuinely believe that Kingdom Hearts lore is not that complicated, y'all just really like making memes, I am going to be sticking to what is just in the prelude of the game. Although I will be touching on some of the things that come out later and the payoff for it, I want to stick with this because this is what I loved so much as a kid. This is what I played over and over and over again. None of the sequels had come out yet to answer the questions. I hadn't learned the names of tropes or developed any deep media literacy. I just knew that I loved it. And so I want to unpack what it is that's just here in the game. The game starts off with day one. Roxas wakes up and opens the window, sees a beautiful city skyline with the sunrise, and immediately goes to his third place, the usual spot. And right now, right off the bat, as an adult, I can say is one of the coolest things that I can remember specifically. Like, I just thought it was so cool that he had a place for him and his friends to go to. I never really had the experience of being able to get on a bike and go over to a friend's house because of suburban sprawl, overprotective parents, that kind of thing. And as an adult, we're really seeing it now. I've been seeing it all over the place. Like, not just bikes did a video on third places where people are feeling isolated and alone because of the loss of third places. Like a place that is not work and is not school and is not your house that you can go to and meet up. I'm gonna stop myself before I can get into my anti-suburbs, anti-capitalist rhetoric, so I'm gonna stick here and talk about how Roxas has been feeling weird lately. The little callback from the first game, I'm having these weird dreams lately. Like, is any of this real or not? We can see that Roxas is having those same feelings that Sora had. His friend Hayner calls him out, and they start discussing something that has been happening throughout the city. People have been very rude and standoffish to them, but they can't figure out why. Hayner immediately thinks Cypher, the leader of their rival gang, set them up. Pence notice that something is missing, and in something that is very funny and memeable, they notice that the word is also missing, leaving the player in kind of a mystery about what it is that got stolen. They go into the town square and start asking around the people what is happening because they are still in the dark, and this is something that is very interesting to me, that they just go around to places, to stores, and people would know their names. They would know the names of the store owners. This one has a little bit of familiarity with me because this was what it was like when I would spend my time in summer in Mexico. My mom would just say, go to Casa Raul. It was never a store. It was always somebody's house that it was referred to, and that's where you would go get your bagged milk or fabuloso or whatever else was needed. they go around and ask people, "Hey, what did they steal?" And people are very cold and standoffish toward them, and they're like, "I can't believe you did this." One of the guys even is like, "Roxas, you were my favorite customer. How could you do this?" And it's not until they find this little old lady, and that's how you know she's gonna be good because she's a little old lady, and she's like, "Hi, can you help me find my cat?" And that is what teaches you the lock-on feature to find the cat. And so I don't want to romanticize too much of this like small town because there is something to be said about small town gossip, and there very much is that real feeling of any little thing can turn people against you in a heartbeat, but there is something just very nice about going to a place where everybody knows your name. Also, this whole adventure is very reminiscent of Kid Detective, which I really enjoyed as a kid. Even now as an adult, one of my favorite fictional characters is Sherlock Holmes, so this whole investigative journalism stuff was very fun. It still is, like, it's very cute. Eventually, the real thief comes along and reveals themselves, and Roxas goes and chases after them. Roxas hears a voice saying, "My liege, we have come for you." And Roxas knows that this was weird. He feels weird about this, but he fights and winds up uncovering all of the photos. And that's when we learn that it was photos that were stolen. And this mystery being also stole the word photos. The photos were all of Roxas, which explains why everyone thought that the thief was them. And his friends get this cleared up, people apologize, and this day has a happy ending. However, some things aren't really the same for Roxas. He knows that there's something different going on. Something is about to change, and it's going to change a lot. As a train arrives overhead from the usual spot, it means that it's time for them to go home. And that one's very reminiscent of, staying out in the street and come home when the street lights come on, which is one of the few things I do have an experience with as a child in terms of lived experiences. The dreams that Roxas has that night are a restoration of Stora's memories, and it is the call to adventure. It's basically how Stora's journey began, but also realistically, it's just lore dumping for the audience. But it still counts and is a very pleasant thing to see, and it's a sign of what to come, a sign of leaving your home for a greater adventure. Roxas starts the day, of course, by going to the usual spot and eating ice cream with his friends. And it's at that point that Pence says, "Do you think we'd always be together like this?" And Hayner, in a surprising thing for me as a kid, the tough guy, the cool looking guy, was very sentimental here and says that we can't stay forever together like this, but what matters right now is what we currently have, enjoying the moment as it is. Hayner tries to lighten the mood and says to them, "Hey, we should go to the beach. We haven't gone all summer vacations." And they decide to get odd jobs around town and pull up enough money to go to the beach and ride the train to go to the beach and get pretzels because they can't afford watermelons. That's another thing that blew my mind as a kid. Like the idea of teenagers could just like make money very quickly and then get on a robust form of public transportation and go somewhere by themselves. That was so cool to me, and it still is cool to me. And like, I really love and desire for public transit. As a kid, at least me, had to beg parents to take you in somewhere, and it was. And I say this very dramatic, but because I was a teenager, is how it felt. It might be too dramatic, but it was infantilizing. Like having to like ask for help like that versus seeing this here. This is like such a great form of development. It's very important for kids to develop like their own sense of autonomy. And I know that like realistically it's not like that. Like here there's no mention of their parents. We never see their parents, so it is very easy for them to just get up and do things. But as a kid that just seemed so cool. And the fact that they can work within the community and they can make money very easily without having to go fill out a form and having to put in an application and somebody's like, "Oh, we're not hiring right now." And just like odd jobs like that, I feel like have not existed necessarily in my lifetime or where I grew up. And don't get me wrong, I am very, very, very much in favor of labor laws, especially child labor laws, because they're supposed to be like 14. But none of the stuff that they do in any of these mini missions are particularly dangerous. Actually, yeah, I mean, I guess the bee one is pretty bad. Like maybe don't send out children to kill bees. But overall, it's very cool to see like an autonomy develop in real time. Also, even like one of the things that they do is a sport called Struggle. And Hayner and Roxas decide that they're both going to enter this tournament and they're going to make it to the final so that no matter who wins, they split the prize. And this is a very healthy form of competition that I've seen even to this day among teenage boys, that it's important for them to have like a physically active and a healthy sense of competition. Like there's no, "Oh, we both have to get scholarships." There's no, "Oh, we have to save this orphanage." This one explicitly is like, hey, let's both go for it and split it among our people. They finish the jobs and put this money in this cute little pouch, which I am surprised that Square Enix never sold this. Like, they could have made so much of money if they had sold this bag, particularly from me in any kind of online store. But hey, I guess that's what Etsy is for. I'll put this in the description. At the train station, Hayner reminds him again that one day they're going to grow up. They're going to separate. They're not going to be able to do these things anymore. Like, one day they're not going to be able to meet up at the usual spot. One day they're not going to be able to do these odd jobs. They're going to have to actually fill out a W-2. But for now, they don't. And so for now, they have to enjoy that. However, before they can go to the beach, Roxas gets pickpocketed by a guy in a black robe. But nobody else sees that guy, so he doesn't have the money when they go to buy the tickets. And so they end up not going to the beach, and they decide to just compromise and watch the sunset on a clock tower while eating ice cream. And everyone, Hayner, Pence, and Olette, is pretty okay with it. They don't seem to show any animosity towards Roxas, but he's still feeling sad. Not just about the beach, but he's also confused because the black hooded guy said to him, "Can you feel Sora?" And he doesn't know what that means. And so he's unable to stay in that moment. He's unable to sit on the clock tower and enjoy the time with his friends because of the thing that happened, because of the things that are happening, those weird feelings he's been happening. The memory thief from the first day, the weird dreams are pulling him away from his current life. The next bit of restoration that Roxas experiences from his dreams is actually something that's really cool. It's watching all of the experiences from Sora as memories of meeting new people, meeting new friends, and seeing the great wide worlds out there that is different from what you currently have. He sees all of his new friends that he's about to make, but also intercut with Riku, Sora's old friend, reminding him of the past, saying, "Oh, you're all grown up now. You're too cool for us now." And that's the thing, is that for all of the pain that is growing up, there's this excitement that you have no idea of all the cool things you're going to do. If I told my 14-year-old self all the things that we would do, he would lose his shit. There is something to be said about the fact that somewhere along the way, the person that you used to be changes and is not only no longer there, but eventually becomes unrecognizable. On the third day, Roxas meets Naminé on his way to the usual spot, and I'm not gonna get into who Naminé actually is and the whole scheme of the story. I promised that I wouldn't. This is a video about growing up. It's not a video about Kingdom Hearts lore. But what is important right now is that in this moment, Naminé is a physical manifestation of all that he has been feeling lately. And not just what he has been feeling, but also what is interrupting his life. Instead of going shopping with his friends, Roxas is distracted by this. Naminé has distracted him to the point where he can't enjoy time with his friends despite the fact that there's not much time in summer vacation left. Roxas goes to follow Naminé to the haunted mansion, which, like, the fact that there is a haunted mansion in this small town is very funny. It is so 2000s in terms of all the tropes and cliches. But he is chased away by nobodies, which I don't know if I have said that that's what they are called, these monsters. I don't even know if we know this in the story yet. But he gets chased to the Sandlot, and it's there that he meets Cypher, the rival gang, the ones that they thought had set them up as the fall guys for being a thief. And as we're about to fight all these nobodies, Roxas goes into the Station of Calling, which, really, again, I'm not going to get into Kingdom Hearts lore, but it is just him further exploring his call to action, his call to adventure. It's a thing that is pulling him out of his current situation where he can't grow anymore. It's his situation that he can't stay in forever. After being awakened from his call to adventure, he sees Naminé again, and she asks him if he remembers his true name. And once again, another call to adventure that he can't answer right now, but soon he won't be able to ignore. It is becoming more and more clear to Roxas that he's not going to be able to let this thing go. When he wakes up, he's back in the Sandlot, and Cypher and his friends are taking photos, and he looks up and sees Hayner, Pence, and Olette looking sad and betrayed, and they run off. They're all kind of weird about it, and Roxas offers, "Hey, maybe we can go to the beach tomorrow." But Hayner says that he promised he would be somewhere tomorrow and walks away. And it is then that Roxas remembers the tournament and that they were going to do the thing that they signed up for together and that they would split the prize among themselves. And looking at it through the lens of a teenager, I can absolutely understand how it is that this is such an awkward situation. I definitely remember being a young kid, like in like middle school, and saying like, oh, so and so, oh, fulano, they suck, and then later in life becoming friends with them because, things change, people change, situations change. And even though that's not the case here, Roxas didn't just suddenly become good friends with the Cypher. I can understand the feeling of betrayal that Hayner, Pence, and Olette feel because this is that rival gang thing. It's they are them and we are us versus them kind of dumb thing. But they are teenagers. It makes sense, especially when they're in healthy competition with each other the way that they are. The sport struggle is something that they all have in common. But also, yeah, that's part of growing up is like leaving behind previously held notions. Like, does Cypher suck? I don't know. Maybe. He definitely seems like it. But it's just like the idea of not hanging out with somebody or one of your friends hanging out with somebody that they used to not like definitely stings at first. At the beginning of day 4, it's the day of the tournament, and right off the bat, it is Hayner versus Roxas, messing up their plan of both making it to the final and splitting the prize. But that's not what Roxas is worried about right now. Right now, he's worried about the fact that his friends are mad at him because they think that he ditched them and that he went to hang out with their rival instead of going to the beach. And Hayner has been pretty cold to him up until now. Very short, very minimal interaction. And right before they start their match, Roxas apologizes about yesterday. And Hayner says, "What, you're still mad about that?" Actually, I'm going to play the apology right here.
Hey, sorry about yesterday.
What? You still worried about that? You need to learn to let that stuff go.
I get a lot on my mind.
Sorry, man. Wait, what am I sorry for?
Our first match of today's struggle tournament will be between Roxas and his best friend, Hayner.
I think this is one of the best interactions and depictions of teenage boys fighting that I've ever seen. I still think about it to this day. I think it really conveys so much. It's very efficient. It shows sadness, empathy, vulnerability, understanding with your friends, and forgiveness, all in like a very short time span. During the fight in the finals, that nobody's come out and start to attack Roxas, and he pulls out the Keyblade to fight. He obviously wins, but then Axel appears, this red-headed guy, and tells him that he's coming with him whether he wants to or not. And Axel is trying to call upon somebody that Roxas doesn't know. He is trying to appeal to a past that Roxas no longer remembers, a person he no longer is. Axel asks him if the town is a creation, if the whole thing is real, and reality starts to warp around him. And Roxas tries to throw away his responsibility. He throws away the Keyblade only for it to reappear in his hand because he has something to do right now and he can't run away from his responsibility. Diz appears, and in playing the game, you see Diz as this master manipulator controlling the life that Roxas is living. Diz is the reason that Roxas couldn't go to the beach because he couldn't create it. Diz calls out to Roxas saying that Axel is speaking nonsense, and Axel calls out to Roxas saying that he's lying and not to give in. And what's interesting about this is that they both represent two different parts of Roxas's life. Axel comes in talking about his past, talking about who he used to be. He calls him number 13, Roxas. And so Axel offers something in the truth, but it is a truth that is no longer real. This gets further explored and flushed out in Kingdom Hearts 358 Days Over 2, but we're not touching that. And also that did not exist when I was playing this. When this game first launched, that was not even an idea. From what I've read, that whole game was written and explored later after this game came out. But what you also have here is Diz, who really represents the future. We haven't seen him really much throughout the game, but we know that he is in control of things. He is in control of what is happening. And Diz has plans for Roxas. And those plans involve him not returning to the organization that Axel mentioned. And so right now, Roxas has the ability to choose. Should he explore his past? Or should he go with the guy who appeared and is protecting him from this fire guy? And this next sequence reminds me of this line from Kung Fu Panda.
There's a saying, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why it is called the present.
And so, not really concerning himself with the past or the future, Roxas calls out to Hayner, Pence, and Olette, calling back to Hayner's words that they can't be together forever, but they can be together right now. And so they have to make it count. And so Roxas breaks through the illusion. He breaks through the grips of time and decides to stay in this moment with his friends, with the townspeople playing a sport, and winning a trophy that he can share with his friends. Afterwards, on the train station tower, Roxas holds a trophy and takes these little orbs on the trophy and passes one to each of his friends, splitting the prize as he promised that he would. And they all hold it out to the sun and sees the light reflecting on the orbs, enjoying themselves a treasure for themselves. A token of their friendship, but also a token of childhood games. Olette pulls out some ice cream and Roxas gets overeager and jumps to stand up and then falls off the clock tower, straight falling, and closes his eyes, and something happens. He starts feeling memories. He starts to talk to somebody he's never met before. He continues falling into the darkness until he wakes up in bed and starts looking out, wondering what happened. This falling into the darkness between that and the station of calling from the third day is really just like metaphorically represents the baptism that there is no going back. That there was the day before and the day now, and there really is no going back after all this, especially as we see in the story, his childhood self has died. And so on the fifth day, with 2 days left to finish their homework, the gang decided to finally do their independent study, which blew my mind. I didn't understand the idea of just picking a topic and writing about it. I guess it still kind of blows my mind that you would give that to high schoolers. Like, that is something I didn't do until college. But the gang decides that they are going to investigate the 7 wonders of Twilight Town and go around and explore these urban legends or rumors that people have been hearing about, which turn out to just be very simple or very boring and mundane phenomenon, which, to be honest, fits the metaphor for growing up. Like, finding out that a lot of the things that seem really hard and complex as a kid are actually very simple, like driving or taxes. When you're a kid, they seem very daunting, but then once you start doing it as an adult, you're like, oh, this is actually quite simple. But the most important thing here is that on the train to the next side of town, the gang pulls out the orbs that they got from the trophy and hold it up to the sun so that the light will reflect it. Roxas gets excited and wants to join in, but then he realizes that he doesn't have his blue orb with his friends, and is very symbolic of the fact that his friends get to continue having a good time. The orbs represent their childhood and their freedom from responsibility, and they'll continue to have summers, and they will continue to be able to ride the train and do struggle tournaments, but they're also going to be able to keep doing homework and independent studies. But Roxas is not going to be able to do any of that. He's not going to have the good, he's not going to have the bad, but worst of all, he's not going to be able to have the choice. It's a decision that has been taken away from him. It's overall an experience that he used to have, but now no longer does. While investigating the last wonder, Cypher appears and they do their typical rival BS, but he walks away and Olette calls out to him and he responds, yeah, tomorrow, I know. Roxas then looks out and the last wonder is this train with no driver, completely empty, typical ghost stuff. But when they're all up on the hill, Roxas sees it and gets really excited. And then he runs down to the station and tries to catch it. And as he sees the train coming, he steps out towards it. But Hayner pulls him back and says, you're going to get hurt. Roxas is confused, and with some really great editing here, the camera cuts, and the train that Roxas saw is no longer there. This one I think is pretty simple, that like the train represents that the future is coming. A future that he can no longer really avoid. He sees it coming, and it's coming for him. But it's not coming for his friends. And they're not going to get on that train yet. They get to have their childhood still, but it's coming for him and he can see it, but they can't. Roxas only counts 6, and Pence tells him that the 7th wonder is a girl in the haunted mansion, and that they were all going to go investigate it tomorrow, because all of them were going to investigate the weird stuff that has been happening to Roxas. They realize that he's been going through it, but they're going to help out as best they can, and they were all going to go tomorrow. Roxas runs to the mansion and looks up and sees Naminé in the window, and she tells him that he has a role in the story to play. He has a duty to a grander thing, a grander responsibility, and that grander responsibility involves him leaving behind his friends, leaving behind beach trips and ice cream. Pence shows up and tells him that they're all going to come tomorrow, and that even Cypher was going to help. Which is what he meant by, yeah, tomorrow, I know. Pence doesn't see Naminé. He just sees wind and assumes that there's a draft, and they go back to the usual spot, celebrating a finished report and decide to go to the train tower and eat ice cream and watch the sunset after a hard day's work. They're all joking, they're laughing, and they are sad that summer vacation is over. They're joking about the future, but Roxas can't be there right now. He is worrying about something bigger. He has responsibilities that they don't have, that they won't have for a while, and Roxas doesn't really understand what is to come. But he knows that things are never going to be the same at this point. Day 6 begins, and Roxas goes to the usual spot and tries to talk to his friends and make light jokes, but they can't hear him. And then he reaches out to them, and they can't touch him, or he can't touch them. And to the player, this is the sign that there is no going back. That big day that his friends were talking about is here, but he is having a different day than them. Hayner, Pence, and Olette leave the usual spot, and Roxas looks down and sees a new photo. The photo that used to have all 4 of them is now missing him, and it's just Hayner, Pence, and Olette. He goes outside and is attacked by Axel and nobodies, but the time stops, and Diz helps him out, telling him to go to the mansion. Roxas again tries to call out to Hayner, Pence, and Olette, but that time has passed. It doesn't work this time. The future is here now. After he is gone, Axel relents that his friend, his old friend, the Roxas that he knew, is long gone. Roxas gets to the mansion and sees the drawings from Naminé and is getting flashbacks. And here is where we get a lot of lore dump about Kingdom Hearts stuff. But at the end of it, he asks, what is going to happen to me? Where do I go from here? Diz appears and interrupts, but Roxas confronts him, saying that he has a right to know what's going to happen to him. And Diz responds that a nobody doesn't have a right to know, nor does it have a right to be. And this has an implication to the story and his attitude, but also this seems like a general consensus that a lot of adults seem to have towards teenagers that start to develop their own autonomy. And a lot of adults I know and have experienced, whether they have kids or not, do not see teenagers as people. And being a teenager is this weird part in life where you're not a child, but you're becoming an adult, but you're not fully an adult yet. So in the eyes of these people, you are not a person. You are nobody, which lore-wise speaking is what Roxas is, but also what it represents. Naminé appears and tells him that nobodies are half a person, but he will not disappear. He will be made whole. Roxas further explores the mansion, and as he goes down, he starts unlocking more memories. He sees himself getting captured by the hooded figure, and there is explaining that he is going to be put into this virtual world and placed there until Sora can be restored. Roxas then realizes that all of his life is a lie. The life as he knows it is not real, and with some real awesome teenage angst and desperation, just starts smashing the supercomputer. The computer that, in his memory, he sees Diz controlling him. The one that he pieces together is the thing that has been affecting his life. The thing that made him miss the beach and what has taken him away from his friends. He goes into the next room and fights Axel. And it's during that fight that Roxas really uncovers his full power. He unlocks his 2 keyblades, and it seems to be that he has his memories back because he remembers leaving the organization, or the organization of black hooded figures, and remembers in his memory Axel calling out, telling him to say. Roxas goes further into the building and sees Donald and Goofy, the people he has been seeing in his dream memories, and is shocked to find out that they are real. He goes into the biggest room and sees Diz standing there in front of a big egg thing. It tells him that he is a servant of the world. And if he is a servant, then Roxas is a tool. And the sad part about it is that in the narrative of the story, that really is what he is. Roxas tries to fight Diz, but Diz is just a hologram. And Roxas right now is very angry and hates this. He is being forced to grow up. He is being forced to leave things behind. But the reality is that the life he knows isn't real. At least not anymore. He can't go back to that lie. He can't live as his childhood fantasy anymore. He has a responsibility. He has a duty to do. And right now it is time to fulfill that duty. Being the other half of Sora, he needs to leave his life behind so that the chosen one can move forward. And it is really sad. There he has actual feelings. The memories he has may be fake, but the experiences he had were real to him. The feelings were real to him. And he's being forced to grow up and leave behind the things that he loves. Roxas accepts his fate and returns with Sora. And when Sora wakes up, he goes through Twilight Town, and while he's getting his bearings, he meets Hayner, Pence, and Olette. the real ones, not a virtual one. And he feels this sadness, this kinship towards these strangers that he has never met. And yet, also, when he leaves and goes to get on a train, they appear and feel this desire to say goodbye to him and to see him off. And as soon as he gets on the train, he cries. Sora sheds a tear because Roxas is inside of him. It's Roxas that feels the pain and sadness of leaving. It's Roxas that is feeling the agonizing loss of his friends in life. He sees these people, these real people, that later in 358 Days Over 2, we learned that he actually did meet. They are the real versions of the people he met. And they don't really know who he is. He knows them in ways that they will never know him, especially now that he has been reunited with Sora. While on the train, Sora finds a little blue orb that Roxas lost, the one from the tournament, the symbol of Roxas's friendship, the symbol of their summer vacation, and a childhood that Roxas is never going to have again. And just like that, a long time ago, I also had the end of my summer vacation. And it's funny because you never know the last time you'll ever do something. I'll be honest, I don't know if I could tell you the last time I had a true summer vacation. Ever since I became the age that Roxas was, I was either taking some class or having a job or both. And now, since 2018, I've been working a full-time job. So I don't know the last time I ever really had a summer vacation, period. And even if I were to go back to school now, I'll never have a vacation, a summer vacation, like the one I had when I was 14 years old. I call this journey bittersweet because I come from it being a grown adult who has seen the end of Kingdom Hearts 3 and seen Roxas's journey fully realized. And yes, in this moment, it is very sad that he is being forced to grow up, but at the same time, this life that he is living isn't real. The life that he will have later on is real, and he will experience joy. He will experience the great things of life. But right now, it sucks. But every year, at the end of August, I still live vicariously through the summer vacation journey of one of my favorite video games. And I still feel this bittersweet journey of growing up and how grateful I am to have grown up and lived a great life and have had great experiences. But I also give myself the space to grieve what is gone. So, yeah, if you're still here, thank you for sticking it out with me. I hope you had a great summer. It took a lot of self-control to not talk about the other games or to talk about Kingdom Hearts lore, and I definitely do want to do that at some point, but for now, I just wanted to share this. Until next time, good night and good luck.